the mind is the one and only unhackable device.
Hmm.
Why give it a backdoor? So
Sure.
go ahead and answer how you want to
Sure,
all these
sure, sure.
things.
So Neuralink, for anyone who's watching and probably isn't familiar, but the concept essentially is that human beings in the near future will be implanted with a chip, and that chip will basically be um, an extension um, of that human being, in the sense that, you know how we all have smartphones, and say Ali goes, Numan, look up when the Pyramid of Giza was made, and then I pick up my smartphone and I search for it. You won't have to do that, because that smartphone is going to be sitting right inside your brain.
The Nobody's Famous podcast. All right, guys, and we are back on the Nobody's Famous podcast. We are back with another interesting, amazing, and unique episode. Every one of these episodes so far have been quite unique in their own way. This one is no different, with the one and the only Muhammad Nauman. How are you doing today?
I thought you were going to say Muhammad Ali, the one and only.
Of course, man. You see,
I like your sports broadcaster voice, man. I
it's
love it.
I have to do a hype up. I gotta do a DJ
Sure, sure,
ramp up.
sure.
I gotta do
No,
a DJ ramp up.
I appreciate it, Ali. Thanks for having me. And I was saying, this is my first appearance, my first experience of a podcast, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of my ideas and listening to yours. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah, the same here, man. And I think we're gonna have a lot of things to talk about. And when I said that the show was unique, it's unique because you have sent across some talking points which we will get into. And I
Sure.
I firstly want to say I really appreciate that,
Cool.
making our job easier. Let's put it that
Awesome.
way. And I want to get right into it. But before I get into the topics, I mean, I do have a couple of questions, and I
Sure.
want to read your bio back to you. I've been doing that in some of the previous shows with some of the guests.
Sure.
I want to read it back to you and see how, what do you think when you hear it if somebody else is reading it? So,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, so you said you're born, brought up and schooled in Dubai. Third child in a four children household. Born to a Pakistani family, grew up in Karama Oud Mitha, which is predominantly South Asian working class neighborhood of Dubai. Your father moved from Karachi to Dubai in 1978, and you yourself are married now for 10 years with two daughters. You went to
Hmm.
McMaster University in Canada to study economics, which was also my favorite subject, by the way. Um,
Nice.
I studied that as well. And your first job
Beauty.
after graduation was working Duplace, right?
Sure.
Doing all those activities down at the Corniche in Abu Dhabi, online
Absolutely.
portal for sports and social club for expats living in the UAE. Awesome. And then you moved to Flash Entertainment 2017 to work on AFC and FIFA, which I'm guessing was, quite the highlight for you um,
Absolutely.
in your career. So before I get into these different talking points, um, how was that reaction? Like, what did you feel when I was reading it back to you? You're like, oh, have I achieved a lot, or there's the best is yet to come?
I think when you asked me to send in my bio, I think I sort of geared it towards um, maybe my life in Dubai, or sort of the period of time I've spent living in the UAE. I was born here. I grew up here, and it's a land, it's a country I feel very, very strongly for. You sort of have these brackets where someone's an expatriate, someone's a guest, someone's a citizen. But I think almost everyone who lives there really feels for the land, and I think I try to sort of get that across in the bio itself, and sort of where we started, where our story started, how our family moved here, and how we sort of grew into where we are today. I wanted to talk about Canada. I know you feel strongly about the country too. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people. I think that's one more country I realized is truly a melting pot. You have kids in school in Canada who grow up with all nationalities around them, whether it's someone from the Caribbean, someone from Africa, someone from South Asia like myself, Arabs, you name it. So everyone knows everyone, and they're sort of culturally educated on, oh, what is Ramadan? Or, it's not a shock when you tell someone, oh, I'm fasting during a class, at university. And yeah, then my sort of my life when I moved back to Dubai, Duplace was, I think for any boy who is a sports fan, anything to do with sports is an exciting opportunity. And Duplace was sort of that beginning. And for anyone who isn't familiar, Duplace.com was basically this online portal that was launched in 2007, 2008, early days in Dubai, when you still had a lot of expatriates, moving to the city to help sort of build the city to what it is today. And what would happen was that a lot of the expats who were moving here were very active when it came to recreational sports, not competitive sports, not professional sports, just recreational sports, something to do after work, something to do on the weekend. And that was my sort of first taste of interacting with expats in the UAE. You had softball nights on Wednesdays where you had all the Americans, all the Canadians with their families out there playing. You had cricket nights where all South Asians were out. You had football, which attracted everyone, the Europeans, the Arabs, etc. So that was my sort of first experience, and it was great because just like Dubai grew year after year, so did the company, and so did opportunities on what we did. Whether it was, we started off in a more public-facing manner, doing leagues for the general public. Then we started working with the sports councils more closely. Then started working with companies in sort of doing corporate wellness programs. So that's my story so far, man. And obviously, Flash was a turning point, purely because of the scale and size of what they were doing, what they were trying to achieve. And it almost felt like it was a parallel universe that I didn't know existed. You like, oh wow, okay, so there's this organization that's doing all of this, and there are all these ambitious plans for Yas Island, and on sort of building brand Abu Dhabi. And just being part of that is exciting, because I think in many ways a lot of us, and this is going to go into another tangent, but just I think we all think about creating legacy. How will I be remembered? What will I contribute? And you read these stories about the royal family, leaders of the UAE, whether it's of the Maktoum family or the Nahyan family, and how they were visionaries, and how they thought about how the city is going to grow within a generation, right? And how it's going to be the best place to live and work and play, etc. So you hear all those stories and you go, you know what? I'm inspired to leave a legacy myself, and I feel in many ways working for Flash, having worked with you and the rest of the team on AFC and FIFA is part of that legacy building.
I think this is a very, very amazing way that you've kind of summed up a lot of things, and
Well,
I'm really glad that you kind of lightly brushed on some of the topics that we are going to talk about, whether it's sports, living, as an expat, the melting
sure,
pot, all these types of
sure,
things, which I think is, I'm glad that you've done that. And I think now going into the topics, people will start to connect the
sure.
dots. I want to do the rev up. So here's some of the questions that I want to warm up with, before we get into your stuff. And the first thing that I have for you, Nauman, is, I don't know you as much, but I do know enough to know that you're a very calm and collected person. And as people start to notice, as you progress through the show, you're very, okay, well spoken, but you're very calm and collected. Like what do you do to maintain that type of demeanor?
Um, I'm not sure. I think part of it is probably the way I grew up, um, but I think partly is also because um, maybe a few central beliefs or central principles. I think one thing I've realized about life in my 36 years, which which isn't a long time, is that you've heard these cliches. Treat someone with respect, and they'll treat you back with respect. You've heard all those cliches, but I think that's truly the case. I think for me to get the best out of Ali, and for me to get the best out of Ali, I have to make sure that my interaction with him are positive, that he thinks that I'm a friend, not thinks but feels that Numan actually cares about my family, or my state of mind on a particular day. And I think when people realize that you're genuine about your intentions and your actions, they open up to you and you get the best out of them. It could be an employee of yours, could be a colleague of yours, could be a friend. I mean, that's what friendship is, right? Truly relying on someone when you need them the most. So I've realized you can call it the game. I think that is the game. I think if you truly play that game, you are better off in life. If you are confrontational, I think that's a short-term game. People are scared of you. They're intimidated. You may not get the best out of them. And I think that there's one thing I've learned, maybe the hard way, is that people never forget how you made them feel. They never forget that, right? A bad job experience, a bad interaction on the street, you name it. People never forget how you made them feel. And if you can sort of be that, I mean, sort of lame to say shining light, but if you can be that positive energy in their day, they are good to you, and you're good to them. And I think, it serves the purpose. I think we all are better off. So that's the reason I choose to. I think this is the best move in a game of in a game.
Yeah, look, I agree with you partially, and because I sort of try to practice the same thing with people,
Sure,
but I would like to challenge you on this notion that
sure,
I'm sure that in your professional career,
sure.
mainly, you would have, you wouldn't experience this 100% of the time. You definitely come across people who were confrontational, or even if you are nice to them, or try to show them the let's say a win-win situation, that
Mm.
they've been resistant and they've been difficult. I mean, I'm sure you've
Hmm.
experienced that, have you?
Oh, absolutely. I think you have people of all backgrounds, all cultures, um, all inclinations that you come across in life. And again, like I said, I think different things may work for different people. But I think just for my sanity and my state of mind, if I'm screaming and shouting, um, it's bad for me. It's bad for my state of mind. So so yeah, you're right. I mean, you're not going to have perfection. You're not going to have every interaction that works your way. But I think that's just the way life is, isn't it? I always draw parallels to sports. I think people who play sports have this natural resistance to what life throws at you. You have that because,
Hmm.
say you and I, say you as an example, you show up. It's your first day at university. It's a new country. You don't know anyone. You've met everyone for the first time in your dorm room, etc. You go down to the basketball court. You see some people playing pick up basketball, right? And you say, "Hey, can I jump in?" And they go, "Sure, come in." Maybe two people on the basketball team are friends, right? So they're going to pass the ball to each other, and so they're going to have this tighter bond, and you sort of see them playing more. And then that once or twice or thrice when they do pass the ball to you, if you do something amazing with that, they go, okay, oh, I see this dude. Yeah, I see this guy. So he's capable of, he's demonstrated a competency. So let me pass the ball to him next time when there's a scoring opportunity, whatever. So uh, I think it's, I don't know, I don't want to say unfair. I think it's unfair to expect people to give you 100% unless you have demonstrated to them that you are competent, and there's trust. And I mean, I guess that's what team building exercises are for, right? You have different departments who don't talk to each other, and suddenly you're playing on the same team, and you have to rely on someone else to deliver on a certain goal. So uh, that's my take on it. I
Yeah.
think people warm up to you, and if you can demonstrate competency, I think you will win most times. And like I said, I think being the opposite is a short-term game. That's my experience.
It's a very, I mean, I think this is a very like either way kind of subject, because I would love to
Sure,
have someone here on the show that would then even challenge this even more. I'm
sure,
challenging it because it's leading into another question that I have.
sure, sure,
But before I move to it, I just want to comment on the team building exercises you're talking about. In a way, I want to say that I don't 100% believe in that type of in a team building exercise, because that is a forced situation where you're asking people to more or
sure,
less work together. Yes, it
sure.
could work, but then it's only like a temporary effect. I've, in my
Mm-hmm.
my professional career, and I'm sure you've experienced it as well. I very much prefer those moments where you're in a very, very bad situation and try to get through and reach a goal, and you have basically I want to say been on so much pressure with your teammates. You have to build that bond. You're forced
Mm-hmm.
in a different way, you build that bond, and then you guys have that thing to remember. Yes, we made it through together. I feel those
Sure.
experiences are much more valuable than a forced team building exercise in a maybe some hotel lobby, or like some ballroom where you've gone and like, oh, let's all go meet and let's try to
Sure.
work something out. So that's my comment on it. And the reason why I'll ask this question to you is because it leads into my second question, which is, I mean,
Sure.
your work is mainly sales.
Mm-hmm.
Um, am I correct in saying that?
Correct. Yes.
And sales, and again, this is, you just cut me off if I'm saying something wrong, but
Sure.
sales in a way is a confrontational, um, I want to say skill. It's all about making those calls, getting the leads, hearing from someone that this person might be interested, pushing that person, and really very much so being, with your ear to the ground and kind of like
Sure.
figuring out where things are. But so you can tie it back to your calm and collected
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
answer, but also answer this to me. Do
Sure.
you think that sales is, or like being a salesman is a skill that can be learned, or is it something that you're born with? And I'm asking that because there may be people that may think like me, who may say, I'm not a salesperson, I can't do it, or I can sell something that I believe in, or you're just someone who, if it's your job and you're going to sell this car, you're going to sell this car, and if it's a different brand, sell it all the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's many ways to look at it. I think if you have a naturally um, outgoing or social personality where you like meeting people, interacting with them, and having shared experiences with them, I think sales would suit you. You know, at least sales is a transaction where both parties um, are giving each other value, right? You could go to Noon or Amazon, and you believe in the platform, you like the interface, you like the prices, so you don't mind parting with your money because you believe you're getting value. As long as that's the case, and if that's how you define sales, that's fine. It's all good, man, because clearly both parties are exchanging equal value. This is how much this costs, and this is what you'll get in return. Now, um, is it good to use deceptive methods when you sell something? Um, uh, Maybe that's an old school philosophy. You see it all the time now in e-commerce platforms. You buy something, you realize whatever you saw in the picture actually doesn't match. What's the return policy? It's immediate. They don't even ask you questions. You
Hmm.
you you call them, you message them, say, hey, come and pick it up. I don't like this. They refund you the money, and it's done. So clearly, that is the way forward. When it comes to the way business is conducted, where you have complete transparency, and there's an equal exchange of value. Sales gets a bad rep, obviously, because you're you're thinking of maybe credit card salesman, and thank God I'm not, you know,
Yeah.
thank God that isn't the case for us, because you have instances where you walk into a gas station and someone says, do you need a credit card? And you wonder, you wonder, does this person even know me? Or do they even know what my requirements are? Have they qualified me? It's just, hey, take it because I have a target to fulfill. So dude, it depends on the type of organization you're in. It depends on the product that you're selling. But if e-commerce platforms are the model, are the future, then it's clear that sales isn't a gimmicky game. It isn't a game of deception. It is a game of equal exchange of value. And if that's the way forward, because we can see it clearly, then that's a good thing. And I think people ought to do that. What do I love about sales, or I mean sales in general, is exactly what we're doing right now. You and I are sitting, we're exchanging stories, we're trying to understand each other, and in the process of understanding each other, I I get to qualify or understand whether you need the service I have to offer, or whether you need that sometime in the near future. And like I said, if the other party is comfortable in giving you money and you're comfortable delivering a service, it's all good, and there's nothing wrong with that. So but yeah, I absolutely love the the relationship building element of sales, where you meet someone for the very first time, and they tell you where they're from, how they came to Abu Dhabi or Dubai, how they've started a new life, what their interests are. I love that bit about the job, and frankly speaking, that's how it should be. It should be about relationship building and truly understanding what the need is, as opposed to shoving something that down someone's throat when they don't need it. As far as I'm concerned.
Oh, don't get me wrong. For sure, I think using e-commerce is a very easy example to kind of
Sure,
sell the idea of sales, if you want to
sure,
put it that way. It's a very easy example, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't kind of like talking about that kind of sales, because in a
sure.
way, online shopping has now changed. Like, obviously, it's changed the landscape crazily, because there's nobody that's harassing you to buy something.
Hmm, hmm.
There's nobody there that's saying, oh, you need to buy this. Okay, you have the sales and you have all these different things,
Sure,
but if you're an avid shopper, or if you're somebody who knows your way around the website, you can very much take your time and just
absolutely,
browse as much as you want, um,
absolutely.
and for on as many products as you want, in the
Hmm.
comfort of your own home. So very much, I'm not talking about that kind of sales, because that's an easy way to to say
Sure.
this is a good thing. I was more talking about this, your the second part of your answer, which was about really meeting somebody, building a
Sure,
relationship.
sure,
And then,
sure.
and some people have that innate ability to kind of, they have that way
Yes.
of or it's like a charisma about them to kind of convince someone that, yes,
Hmm.
I want to give you my money in exchange for the service
Yes.
that you're
Yeah.
offering.
Absolutely.
That's why I think there's, maybe it's a mixed type of answer, but I was looking for either this or that. I think it can be mixed. Like, some people might be born with it, some people can learn it. I think also what it's important is to try to, um I think your whole life you are playing salesman, whether it's,
Hmm.
I mean, this is the I think I would like kind of highlight the whole thing that way. I would say your life, you're always uh selling yourself to others. In a way, what I
Absolutely.
say, you are like, when you go to a job interview, you are selling yourself to that person, saying,
Hmm.
this is who I am, these are my credentials, I can offer
Sure,
you value, so pay me money. It's
sure,
kind of like
sure.
that. So I think if I were to answer my own question, I would say, you're already a salesman. It's just, what are you good at selling? And
Mm.
are you good at selling your brand? Are you good at selling your skill set? Are you good at selling a concept? Like,
Hmm.
when we talk about entrepreneurs. So I think it's very much, as you were speaking, I was very much thinking about that, and it's just, really, you are always selling something, whether it's your
Hmm.
brand, whether it's your skill set,
An
whether
idea,
an
a,
idea,
a,
anything like
a
that.
way of
Yeah.
life. Yeah, no, no, absolutely. I think that essentially is what this is about. But again, I really believe, um, much like anything, you know, I think you build a business for the foreseeable future, right? You don't build a business for a year or 2 years. You build something that will last a decade or a couple of decades. And if that's the case, I think your resources are better spent building those relationships. You know, not those hack jobs. You know, I'm in
Hmm.
and out. I didn't deliver something properly. You know, someone's pissed off. None of that. You know, you build it long term, and if you invest properly, which is invest in relationships, invest in building a product that your team can get behind. You know, how important is that? Is that you really believe in what you're selling, and you're confident that this is actually good for the customer. Because like I said, there's no more hiding anymore. We keep talking about how the game has changed, and how we were talking earlier before we started recording, is you had these clergymen, these people who had all this knowledge and no one else knew. So you know, you could say whatever you want, but now you have a situation where information is easily accessible. There was this virtual conference I was attending where this guy was talking about selling cars online. I mean, can you imagine buying a car online? I mean, in this part of the world, or at least culturally speaking, we're so used to touching and feeling and, you know, getting a sense of how something is. And he's saying, no, man, if you have high resolution pictures, if you have all the information transparently indicate that there is a previous history of accidents, no accidents. But more importantly, he mentioned that there's a 7-day exchange policy, no
Hmm.
questions asked. If you don't like what you see, give it back. We'll take it back. So we're headed into an era of transparency. And if you're hiding, if you're deceptive, it will show, and it's going to be bad for you, bad for your reputation. So yeah, man, that's the way forward.
Yeah, I want to really, I want to like move on. This is so exciting, all the things that we're talking about. I want to end this kind of part by saying
Sure.
also how you were mentioning about, if people buying cars online. I mean, this is now this is the norm. It's the norm now.
Mm,
And if you go like, unfortunately, the tragic passing of Tony Say, the founder of Zappos, um,
mm-hmm.
he came up with, I mean, he just recently passed away. By the time this show airs, this time would have been past. But um, he sold this concept as well, as that who even thought of you buying shoes online. If you
Mm-hmm.
buy shoes, like people all say, no, but I need to know if it fits, if I need
Sure.
to know if
Sure.
I can walk in them, can I wear this for 5 years without feeling pain. The concept of shoes is very much readily acceptable to go and like buy something than a car. But if I'm going to do that, I need to make sure that the shoe fits, right? That's
Sure.
literally the saying, does the shoe fit? But I think that he was such a genius in that way, that he hacked this idea, and he said, you know what, because this is where everything came after, because
Mm-hmm.
Amazon
Mm-hmm.
bought them and all. He said, you know what, it doesn't fit, free returns, send
Mm,
it back. And that's where kind of the concept
mm,
came out, and just goes back to what you just said previously. I'm just connecting the dots here. And
yes.
his business, like his vision for his business was like, I wanted, to make employees happy. When if I
Mm,
make my employees happy, the customers are happy. And they had such a very low, like higher rate, because of how dedicated someone must be into making employees, I mean, making the customer happy. And I think
sure.
this is again comes back to use what you're saying is, you build a product which you can get behind. And somebody like him, the company ended up being bought by Amazon, and this
Mm,
notion of, free returns, free shipping if it doesn't work,
mm.
it's the norm now. Is the norm now.
It's the norm. It's the
Is
norm.
the norm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so Nauman, I wanna I wanna take this moment to ask you
Sure.
this question. So throughout your life, what can you say has been like the most significant inflection point? And the reason I ask this, I say this because, again, I said before, I don't know you so well, but I feel that there is something that happened in your life to then put you on this path that you're on. There's something that must have happened, and you're like,
Sure.
I'm taking control of my life. I'm, gonna take the bull by the horns, and I'm
Sure.
driving this car.
Sure.
Am I right to think that?
I mean, I think you are right in many ways. And I will talk about that one instance that I truly believe sort of changed the course of many things for me. But I think, we're third culture kids. Our parents came from another country. We were born in another country. So we sort of don't have the same patriotic fervor as our parents did. Nor do we feel the same about, any other place. And I think what that does for you is it helps you question a lot of your sort of conventional thoughts. Why are certain things acceptable in your culture? Why are certain things forbidden in your culture? And I think the more questions you ask, and the deeper you go into understanding the reasons, um, the more you the more you learn about um, how we came about creating certain rules. I mean, most rules are man-made. You know what I mean? Someone said something at some point that now applies to me, and I didn't come up with that. I wasn't born with that. Why does it apply to me? So I think just having that freedom to explore ideas, and read about different cultures, it really broadens your horizon. I think it really helps your outlook in life, that this is what I want to do, and this is where I want to go, without any baggage, without any external influences, without any pressures. You go, this is the path I want to chart for myself. And I think one of those instances in my life, I would say, um, is the moment I met my wife. So I'm gonna come back to this story, but I think one of the most intriguing figures in sort of boxing history or sports history, or just for someone with a cult personality, is Mike Tyson. I mean, if you look at his life from where he started to where he ended, it's a complete roller coaster, right? And I know I mentioned that I want to talk about UFC and boxing, because it's an intriguing, they are intriguing sports. But just to give you some background, Mike Tyson was in a juvenile center at the age of 14, Ali. All right. So he's caught for stealing. He's in a juvenile center. He goes to the recreational area of the center where there's a boxing ring, right? And he's naturally a heavy set guy. Like even at 14, he was a big dude. And someone says, "Why don't you jump into the ring and start sparring?" And sort of the moment that happened, it led to all these other occurrences where someone called someone saying, "Listen, you need to watch out for this kid. This kid is amazing in the ring. He could be the next big thing." And then he ends up meeting his mentor at the age of 15 or 16, who says, "You are going to be the next world champion." Right? So this dude is this father figure that he was missing in his life, reinforced the fact that he could be great. He could be something that he isn't, because you can imagine someone who's in a juvenile center, right? Broke, you know, everything that you can imagine. So at 14, he's in a juvenile center. At 19, he is the world heavyweight boxing champion in the space of 5 years. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine that? And with that comes the fame, the fortune, the notoriety, and sort of the abusive, time of his life where he was
Yeah.
into the partying and the women and the drugs. And he has a criminal conviction. He goes away to jail for 3 years in his prime of boxing, comes back, wins the world championship again. But in that entire roller coaster ride, if you hear the man now, and he was fighting recently, he had an exhibition match. He's completely calmed down. Like he's a different person to what he was in his prime. I mean, he was called the baddest man on the planet. That was his nickname, right? Iron Mike, baddest man on the planet.
Hmm.
He had a reputation of like, if you looked at me a different way, you're gonna get knocked out, whether you're a reporter or someone on the street. And he credits him meeting his wife
Oh
for that
wow.
change, for that
Yeah.
calming, presence, on his sort of ruthless, you know, instinct, as you would. And the funny thing is that you see that in many, many great men. Them saying they met someone, they met a life partner who changed the way they thought and helped them understand where they were supposed to be going. Anyway, um, I met my wife 10 years ago, 10 years ago. And um, she was smarter than me, had achieved more than me. And for someone, like I said, you know, when you play sports, you're competitive. You're competitive as a person, and you go. So, for me, she was almost a person to aspire to. You know, that, oh, I want to be like her. I want to match what, you know, what she's done, what she's achieved. And I think in many ways that was an inflection point in my life on going, well, then I need to take charge. Then I need to make a you know, certain decision in my life. So it's funny how just meeting someone, it could be a friend, it could be your spouse, it could be anyone, but meeting someone who understands you, and can show you where you need to go, can change your entire outlook on life.
These are some great parallels that you've just set up beside each other, and I think I want to comment on the fact that when you met your wife, she was smarter than you, she had
Yes.
achieved more than you, and I think um, I aspire the same way to be with someone who is be with
Oh, absolutely.
someone who is better than me,
Absolutely.
earns more than me, and can because I agree with you, and I think that again, challenging the notion of especially culturally, as well as that it's usually
Sure.
the male who should be in that kind of
Sure.
position, which I think is
Sure.
it's no longer the case. Not even, I don't think it's even right, because it's just happenstance or a circumstance, um,
Sure.
similar to what Mike Tyson went through. And I think that
Mm.
this is, I mean, it's a very great story that you've shared, and I think again it just makes us want to aspire to that. I
Mm.
would challenge it. I would
Sure.
challenge again. You're giving me a lot
Sure.
of opportunities to challenge. I would just say, because I've said this on the show many times before, and I kind of still stand by it all the time, is that I wouldn't, I what you just mentioned and what I mentioned is great. It's always great to have someone to aspire to, but I would
Sure.
also say, don't wait to find that someone. Don't
Hmm.
wait to find someone to also maybe, because, like, let's take Mike Tyson for example. He was the baddest man on the planet. He was
Mm.
the world heavyweight boxing. He's
Mm.
achieved.
Mm.
You can do that too, and not necessarily have to meet somebody for you to then go, oh, now I want to start achieving. I would just say
Mm.
that I think there's a very, I wouldn't say fine line. I just think there's another way, is also for yourself internally. Don't think that you need to wait to find someone to start achieving. Achieve as much as you can, and thank God you meet somebody and you want to aspire to,
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
amazing. But
Exactly.
I would just say, again, I would challenge it a bit and say, don't wait, because you don't have time. You don't have time to wait.
Absolutely. No, there's no time to wait, man. Where we are all mortal beings, and yeah, um, absolutely. It's one life you live, and if you can, I mean, the sooner you can find your purpose, um, the sooner you can be on your way. That's very, very
Yeah,
important.
yeah. Um, well, no, man, this whole, okay, so we've been talking for 47 minutes now. Okay,
Wow.
more or
Okay.
less, more
Okay.
or less. And these are all my introductory questions,
Okay.
just to put things into perspective.
Sure.
Um, I do have one more question here, which I'm I'm gonna keep it till the end,
Sure.
because I want to get into the talking points here,
Hmm.
since we've touched on a lot of different subjects, and I feel that this is the right time. So
Sure.
I wanna hand over the keys to the show, driving the steering wheel to you,
Sure.
and let's just do a debate between each other on these topics. Let's go through them. I'll go through
Sure.
my last question from the introductory ones later, and I think
Beauty, absolutely.
let's just take it from there.
Sure, sure. I think there's one thing I mentioned that I wanted to talk about was sort of um, podcasts as a platform of communication, right?
Yeah,
We've talked about the Joe Rogan experience and how he sort of revolutionized the way ideas are expressed. I think Joe Rogan's done more for adult education than I would say most schools and universities. I can swear by that. The fact that he brings these subject matter experts on a show and he's able to ask these interesting questions, these introspective questions, and get the best out of them. And I think one thing that this format, a podcast, has done is sort of dispelled the notion that people don't want to learn, and I truly believe that. You know how we feel, well, most people choose to be entertained. They'd rather listen to music. They'd rather watch a show. They'd rather watch a movie than read a book, right? But I really believe that I think video as a format and even podcasts as a format have changed that. I think if you can give someone a glimpse of any subject, right? Be it math, be it archaeology, be it any of the sciences, and tell them why it's interesting and why it's revolutionary, you'll have their attention. As long as it's delivered in a format that's feasible. If it, Let me give you an example. I think I've talked about sort of ancient civilizations, which is very interesting, right? Because it sort of helps you understand how people before us lived and what they did and what was their culture like. How did they speak? How did they interact? Um, you're familiar with the Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, right?
yeah,
It's one of the oldest man-made structures on Earth, and I think one thing I find the most fascinating about Egyptian culture, or just the Pyramid of Giza in particular, is that it was the tallest man-made structure on Earth for close to 3,000 years before. I think it was the St. Paul's Cathedral in England, or some of these cathedrals in Europe around that century, the 12th, 13th, 14th. So I think the Pyramid of Giza was about 130 meters, and then you had these cathedrals that took over 3,000 years later, right? And then you had the Eiffel Tower, which was 300 meters. Then you had the Empire State Building, which was 400 meters, and now you have the Burj Khalifa, which is 828 meters. But I mean, if I tell you that, you go, hold on, you're telling me that ancient Egyptians were experts at math, science, architecture, engineering. I mean, were they such experts for them to have built that? And the moment I give you that little thing, you go, you know what? I'd love to read more about how the Pyramid of Giza was made. I'd love to know more about which pharaoh was in power. Who was the leader of the Egyptians then. So I think that's what this format has done is for education and sharing of ideas. I love that. I love the fact that I don't have to tell you, Ali, for you to understand the Pyramid of Giza, go read a 600-page book. The moment
yeah,
I say that to you, I've lost you. You're not going to
yeah, yeah.
read a 600-page book. But if I can show you a 3-minute video that sort of gives you the meat of the matter, you're in, you're connected, you're like, you know what? Let me learn more. That's what I love about this format.
I mean, I would love to be able to see a graph which can show these are the people who want to learn and get into podcasts, or who have this appetite to learn and watch videos and even read books to a certain extent and to watch documentaries. And I would like to see also that graph to say these are the people who are not interested in these types of things,
Mm,
because you have that. And dare I say it, I am that person from time to time. I can be that
mm,
person where I go like, I'm not interested. I'm not that
mm,
I'm not interested in the subject. I'm not
mm.
interested in learning about this thing right now.
Sure.
Because I think it's very important to mention this here, is that the fact that you need to also internally have this thirst for knowledge, or that you
Mm,
want to learn. And I'm gonna be an advocate for those people who don't have it. Some people don't have it. Some people
mm,
um, they have naturally innate street smart. They have
mm,
um, they just don't, they feel that what they know right now is enough and do not need to learn more within the moment, or they can learn
Sure.
as they go along. But
Sure.
the way that the world is right now, how podcasts have grown, video has grown, the access to information has made people more curious. And believe it or
Yes.
not, it's not me saying that. If you go to YouTube videos online of people sharing information, whether it's history or
Mm.
absolute sciences, you'll find it. And I think this is the, it's just, I mean, that's because it's so easy to access that information. It's so easy to access it. As you said, it's just a search. It's just a search away. You can just,
It's a search away. Ali, just taking a step back on this conversation, I truly believe that learning is has been made intimidating to people.
yes.
It's physics or chemistry, geology. What? No, I'd rather listen to, I'd rather watch. I think we've done a horrible job of making things exciting and accessible to people. And that's why learning is intimidating. I think the moment I mean, how many people know about quantum physics? How do you even define quantum physics? And I think you're doing a disservice to learning if you cannot break a complex idea down to a sentence or two sentences. And this again goes back to my earlier point about, holders of knowledge and power not doing a good job of disseminating it. Right? If more people knew, if more people understood, they'd be better off. They'd be better off in some shape or form in their life. So you look back at school, you look back at university, the way things have been taught. And like I said, you go to the comment section of all of these tutorials that you were mentioning, and people go, and I've learned more
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
this tutorial than I did back in class. Now, again, granted that I don't think we had the attention span in class, given that there were so many more distractions, right?
yeah,
Because we were young and everything was colorful. But I mean that's what I believe. I think if you can make it accessible, easy to digest, I think people. I mean, there is a natural curiosity that people have, but if you keep getting shut down, saying, "Well, I don't have an answer to this," or "That's too complicated to understand," people will stop asking
yeah,
questions.
yeah. Oh, I wanna, like, I also don't wanna do a disservice to teachers, and I wanna say
Yes,
that
yes,
definitely in this period right now there are different teaching methods. But see, there's two things here, and then we can move on to
sure,
the next topic. Um, there's two things here. Teachers, and I learned this from a recent new friend, and she's a teacher herself, and
sure.
she changed the way I've always believed that teachers are the how you say, like, the lost heroes, the people
Mm,
who they pass along the knowledge. But she added something to that for me. She said
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
that the job of a teacher is to give knowledge, in the hopes that this person will take that knowledge and become great,
mm-hmm,
so that person will be remembered, and the teacher itself, or the teacher herself or himself, is forgotten. That's the
mm-hmm,
job. That's the job of a teacher, is to
mm-hmm,
pass along knowledge and be forgotten. And when she said
mm-hmm.
that sentence to me, it just really struck with me, and just I had gave me a very different view about how teachers are, because they
Sure,
really are the unsung heroes.
sure.
But to add to that, I understand the format of schools. I mean, we've all been through it. You understand this format of schools. You need to sit in a class, listen to the teacher, listen to all these
Ali,
instructions.
can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you remember the name of any of your teachers that were really inspiring in grade 4 or grade 7 or grade? Do you remember the name of that teacher?
Some of them, I would say,
Some. So
some,
you
not
remember the
all.
full name?
Of course, not
No, no, no,
all,
no,
but
not
yeah,
all.
yeah.
But that's what I'm talking about, right? There
Mm,
were some teachers, and again, this is in no way a slight on anyone. I mean, who am I to judge anyone? But you remember those teachers. You remember the teacher that
yeah,
made you fall in love with the subject. You remember the teacher that broke down a complex concept into such a simple form you understood it immediately. You
yeah,
remember the teacher that said, you know what, you can do better than this. Um, and so that is teaching then, right? If you can remember the full, I remember full names. I remember some names of English teachers in high school I remember my accounting teacher because the teachers used to sit in the same staff room, right? The same sort of common area. And I remember my English teacher showing, not remember, I mean, I was told that my English teacher showed one of the essays I wrote to my accounting teacher. And she was like, why can't you work as hard at accounting? I mean, you can do this in English. Why can't you do? So, dude, that is teaching, right? If you can get the best out of someone, and again, like I said, there's no slight on anyone. Ali, you remember those teachers. I remember those teachers, and
Yeah.
you will never forget those teachers. You'll tell your kids about them, like, you know what, I had this one, and she did this for me, and I'll never forget that. So
Yeah.
that is teaching for me. And but yeah, times have changed, and technology has facilitated learning like no other.
No, definitely. Look, we could spend a whole episode on just talking about that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I would love to. So again, um, all these points are valid, and it even goes back to which kind of students digest which subjects better than others, because that is the case as well. So it's very important to kind of keep that in mind.
Many variables. Oh no, no, no.
Yeah, many
Many
variables,
variables.
many
Many
variables.
variables. Absolutely, absolutely.
Neuralink. Let's talk about
Yes,
Neuralink.
yes,
I
yes.
I think I mean, you sent me a video, and I've I've watched the video, and you see, like,
Sure,
for me as a tech person, as a geek, as
sure.
someone who plays video games, as someone who's like into this kind of stuff, to me this is a normal path. This is where things should be going, and this is
Sure,
cool, weird, and crazy and scary place, but it's not scary in a way because I kind of know that this is going to happen at some point.
sure, sure,
But I have a couple of questions here, and
sure,
maybe you can comment and talk about, how the Matrix helicopter scene is related to this.
sure,
But for
sure,
me,
sure.
it's like it's like, Elon Musk has, put this concept forward, and just, it's probably been a concept in so many people's minds, but he was like, you know what, we're gonna do it now, we're gonna make it happen. And it's just like,
Sure,
there's I have a couple of questions. It's like, how can
sure.
your brain be so precise
Hmm.
for you to get those exact movements that you want, especially if you're a surgeon and then there's a robot that is connected to your brain and making those movements? Second question: doesn't this invade your own privacy? I mean, obviously your
Mind
Neuralink,
control.
yeah,
Are you
it can be
concerned about mind control?
yeah, it can be hacked. Literally, someone could hack into your brain and make you do things.
Sure.
And then again, I want to always play devil's advocate here and say the mind is the one and only unhackable device.
Hmm.
Why give it a backdoor? So
Sure.
go ahead and answer how you want to
Sure.
all
Sure.
these
Sure.
things.
So Neuralink, for anyone who's watching and probably isn't familiar, but the concept essentially is that human beings in the near future will be implanted with a chip, and that chip will basically be um, an extension um, of of that human being, in the sense that, how we all have smartphones, and say Ali goes, Numan, look up when the Pyramid of Giza was made, and then I pick up my smartphone and I search for it. You won't have to do that, because that smartphone is going to be sitting right inside your brain. And I talked about the Matrix, the scene from the Matrix. I think people have seen the first part. Remember that Trinity, who's the girl, and Neo, that they're walking towards the helicopter, and Neo asks her, "Do you know how to ride a helicopter?" And she goes, "Not yet." And she calls someone, and they basically download instructions on how to fly a helicopter into her brain, and then she flies it, and she kills all Mr. Smith and all those bad guys. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine? I mean, we were talking about teachers, right? We were talking about students of different caliber. Imagine you could download an entire encyclopedia into your brain, and you know everything. I mean, this is all theoretical. I think it's in the testing phase, but I mean, this might as well be, um, we might as well be a new species. You know, you have Homo sapiens, that's us, which is the intelligent human being or the wise human being. We may just become something else completely as a species if we can actually do that. Um, you know, again, I'm not a science or a tech, not geek, but I'm not as well read as maybe other people are. I mean, Elon Musk is an intriguing character. I mean, what he's done for for the space race, for green technology, for electrical cars. I mean, it's amazing what he's done, and he's doing this with sort of neurotechnology. Um, it's mind-boggling that this could happen. You were talking about a backdoor, or you were talking about how the brain is unique. And I mean, you know, Ali, there are so many variables there are so many things happening at the same time. So to go back to your point, I think I was reading, or rather a friend was commenting when we were having these conversations, that at the moment, we cannot create a human brain. Like we don't have the means to create something as complex as a human brain. What scientists have supposedly achieved is that they've mimicked the brain of a worm. I'm forgetting the name of the worm. I'm forgetting the type of,
Okay.
but it's obviously
Yeah.
a very basic function of a worm. Like they've
Or like
tried
a
to,
tapeworm or something like that, maybe.
yes, something. Look it up online after, I guess. So they've attempted to do that. I mean, the human brain is so complex. We haven't cracked it, and so and yet we have Neuralink on the horizon. And you know, to go back to your point, which something I read or rather watched, which really struck me, is that someone was talking about facial recognition. Did the iPhones come up with facial recognition? You sort of uh, through your retina. Was it some smartphone that came up with facial recognition? So you basically show your retina
It was
and
the
it
iPhone, I
scans your
think. Yeah.
face. It was the iPhone. It was the iPhone, right? Okay, perfect. So I think there were issues initially with that, where if you were wearing a cap,
Hmm.
it couldn't it couldn't read it. It couldn't recognize or open your phone. And then I think there was this tech guy who was saying that, you know, a child could be sitting in a baseball park and they could spot their parent i- in the near distance. And just by the silhouette of the parent, the child will know that's their parent. And here you have an iPhone that won't open because you're wearing a cap. You know, clearly the brain is that complex.
But you see, this is why. Look, see, this is where, I very much, this is very intriguing to me. This is very much something like I'm not someone who's against it. I'm just asking the obvious questions.
Sorry.
But yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
but I want to say is, see, this example you just gave.
Hmm.
It's that's one of those specific examples where scientists come and say, let's still strive to make a machine that can live, feel, think, and move and do all these things as a human. And
Sure.
again, I tell you, because I've watched these things, and I even let's even reference the Matrix. You know how what the Matrix is all about, how it's all, the machines control. And if you've watched the Animatrix, which was the animated version
No.
of the
Okay.
Matrix, basically it's showing you. I mean, I think for anyone who hasn't watched it, you should watch the Animatrix, because it's basically
Nice.
shows you the story before Matrix 1, 2, and 3. It's like, how did the
Hmm.
humans get to
Oh,
that
interesting.
point?
Okay.
They talk about the war between the humans and
Okay.
machine. I
Okay.
watched it when I was quite young, because Matrix came out when I was quite young. I watched it, and that movie was, I mean, the Animatrix, that anime, more or less, was so, I want to say, traumatizing for me, because I, because I'm a geek and all that stuff, I imagine these things would happen in the future. And I think this example you gave is one of the reasons why scientists will strive to, like, how can we get this, how can we make a brain
Sure.
for it to
Sure.
identify that, oh,
Sure.
this child knows that this is the parent. Because now,
Sure.
even now with masks and the COVID-19
Sure.
environment, people were saying, "Oh, phone's not going to be able to
Sure.
recognize your face because you're wearing a
Mm.
mask," but they're learning. And this is where
Sure.
Google is implementing, machine learning in its phones and all that kind of stuff. They
Sure.
are learning. Machines
Mm.
can learn, and artificial intelligence, and that was the end of your Neuralink video, is you become symbiotic with
Mm.
Neuralink, and this is the goal. I think this is the goal, is
Sure.
that you are half man, half machine. And I think,
Sure.
again, just saying that kind of gives me a bit of
Mm.
goosebumps. But
Mm.
again, it kind of makes me a bit scared if you think about it, because it goes back to, for example, what you talked about, the Eiffel Tower, or the Giza pyramid. For
Mm.
example, the Eiffel Tower was a feat of extreme human excellence and suffering at the same time. Like the architect, had to come up with this design, and pushed himself to this limit to be able to create something that was in his mind, and now stands as a symbol of human ingenuity and architecture and
Mm.
all that. And I
Mm.
think if you have a machine that could do that, you kind of lose the essence. Again, I'm not just saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying you lose the brilliance of the human mind. This is
Um.
the
Sure.
this is where I think.
Ali, there's so many elements here. I think one element is that this is inevitable. This is inevitable. I mean, what the internet did for the information age,
Yeah,
this is inevitable. Whether we like it or not, this will happen. And I think what's really exciting there is that, we always cite movies, Star Trek, Star Wars, the Jetsons. So it's almost as if the human mind can imagine it,
it can
they
be
will
so.
materialize
Yes,
it.
it can be so.
It's amazing, isn't it? From
Yeah.
all those shows back then, you have Alexa now sort of controls the heat, light, the music, all of that in your home.
Yeah,
So
hovering
you had that
cars, robots,
hovering.
hovering buses, all that kind of
It, it
stuff.
will
Yeah.
it will happen. Now, um, I was having a conversation with a friend, um, and there's two elements here. The first one is, I think uh, I think almost the no, I'll come to this afterwards. I have two girls, right? They are 6 and they are 1. When they are born, I have to teach them how to hold a spoon, how to eat, how to walk, how to run, how to look out for a car, on the road, how to learn. So literally, human beings, every generation go back a cycle to then go forward a cycle. Like my kids weren't born with anything, but in 30 years, when they have their own kids, it's going to be the same
The
thing all
same
over
thing.
again. They're going to start from zero. So Neuralink, and it's not just that. It's the fact that we don't learn our lessons. I mean, how many people will remember how many people died in the Second World War? How many people will remember how many people died in the First World War? How many people remember how many people died from pandemics and man-made suffering? But almost immediately, if we can be born with that knowledge, hypothetically, we're not going to waste time taking any of those steps. Hypothetically,
Don't you think
hypothetically,
that's a bit overwhelming, though, to be born with that knowledge? To be at that age, and to realize, as soon as you're born, the amount of suffering that humans have caused
I mean,
for a
maybe it needs to
child.
be an age, like you need to be 13 for TikTok. Maybe maybe you need to be 13 to have that chip implanted, or maybe when you hit puberty, I don't know. But all I'm saying is, how we go. It's frustrating that I have to
Fine.
teach someone from zero every time. So that was one element, and the second element, I think, which is equally important, is that almost any wars we fight, I mean, this. I'm from Pakistan, so India, Pakistan, Lebanon. You have the Middle East that's been in conflict for a long, long time. Almost every fight we've fought, or the Second World War, has been about resources. Has been, how much more land can I get? How many more resources can I get? And I think the idea that, if not if the machines take over, maybe if we can augment our brains through Neuralink, or even if the machines take over, you and I, Ali, won't have to work for a living, because almost everything that we need, I mean, 3D printing will make you a house, will make you a car, will make you, so, so you could almost argue that we could then use the time that we have towards more maybe artistic ventures. I mean, you know how many people hate their jobs and they're constantly
Yeah,
complaining about their jobs, and they're sort of locked into that cycle because they need a monthly income to pay their bills. I mean, imagine a time where housing is affordable, or is free. Housing
hmm
is free.
hmm
Education is not in a school, but through here. You know, you've got it. Food is plentiful because we have the super crop now, or maybe we start eating insects. I don't know, because insects are plentiful.
yeah.
Um, would we be greedy, and would we want to fight wars if we had everything taken care of? I mean, that's a net positive of all of this technology. But then you have the mind control elements.
I would listen. I am very much for everything that you're saying, but I'll beg to differ and say that we would still fight. You know, again, you watch
Sure,
series like Altered Carbon, or you watch, that kind of stuff where
sure,
people have reached the
sure,
pinnacle of human existence,
sure.
and they have time for spiritual needs and a higher
Interesting.
self and
What
all
is this?
that. And
Sorry, what is this? It's an anime.
no, it was I mean, it's a canceled show on Netflix. They did 2 seasons, and
Oh,
where
okay.
it's called Altered Carbon, basically, where it isn't, obviously, the very, very far future, where your body is not really your body. It's just a sleeve, as they call it. And
Interesting.
your consciousness, okay, it's not even your memory or your brain. It's your consciousness is in a kind of like chip, or like something like a disk, which is called like a
Interesting.
stack, which is inserted into the human, like into the neck. And you can only
Mm,
really kill someone for good is
if
by
you.
destroy their stack, as they say.
Uh huh. Uh
So
huh.
basically, you can shoot someone and take their stack and put them in another sleeve, because it's another body. And the way the show was amazing, in the way that it told a story of a character. So like that actor with that kind of backstory, but played by another actor. So Joel Kinnaman was playing,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah,
The
playing,
dude who played
uh,
RoboCop.
yeah, yeah, and playing basically, he's playing the 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 life of another actor and his
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, but you're only
Mm-hmm.
seeing Joel Kinnaman's body. So again, and he meets these people who are like, there's a class of people who are way above, the kind of
Sure.
the low
Sure.
people and all that, who have reached this higher state. And again, it just it begs the question that how far can we go with technology, to a certain point where might lose, our values. Even, I mean, even watch the movie Ready Player One. People get engulfed
Mm. Mm.
into that kind of stuff. People even say it now, and they say, oh, with VR people are going to get lost and stuff. That is true, but I think this is where education comes in. You need to teach people
Mm.
to kind of make that
Mm.
separation between the real and the virtual, and the how far should we go. I mean, again, we could talk for hours on this.
Ali, we're speaking of mind control, um, and how that could be to the detriment of the human civilization if everyone had a chip, and you could program everyone to think a certain way. But you know what's funny is that we already have that. People are indoctrinated. Whether it's nationalism or some ism, people are indoctrinated, and the moment you threaten that indoctrination, you know, it, so what do you want? Do you want an equal world where everyone has access? I mean, here's a stat, right? So China has over 1 billion people, and I think the government recently announced that they had finally eradicated absolute poverty. So their definition of absolute poverty is someone who's living under $1 a day, or $36, $30 a month. So $1 a day, Ali. Eh, that's still poverty, but it's not absolute.
Hmm.
That's not absolute poverty. You know what I mean? So what this can do for human standard of living is tremendous, but there will be a price,
Yes.
as is the case with everything.
And again, I am with you on this one. I just think that we have to be very, very much aware of
Sure,
how things are going to change. Um,
sure,
let's maybe take it down a notch and probably
sure,
talk about you're growing in Dubai, and then
sure,
we can talk about sports because I know you wanted to talk about sports. So
sure. Um, I I mean, I think I was mentioning earlier that when you read history, Ali, and you read about great civilizations, whether it was the Greeks or the Romans or even more recently, um, you had North African countries, East African countries that were sort of centers of power and education and wealth and luxury in the 13th, 14th, 15th century. And you look at those civilizations now, and you think, wow, what happened? I mean, they're destitute, they don't have the right governance, and the civil wars, and you go, wow, like these guys were like this 500 years ago or 300 years ago. And I think we're in a very, very special place living in the UAE. We're in a very special place that, I mean, my dad moved here in the late 70s, and he's retired. He's retired here in Dubai. And I mean, he can literally claim that he lived an entire life without wars, without poverty, you know, with access to every possible amenity while being an expat in a foreign country. I mean, I don't think, you were saying people don't realize how easy it is to learn. I don't think people realize how good they have it here. And I think people have sort of this mindset that, well, if I don't get the passport, then why waste my time here? And um, and that's a pet peeve of mine, honestly, for someone who grew up in this country. Just hearing that, it's there ought to be more gratitude. And I always say this, what what services do you get as the citizen of a country? I'm from Pakistan, right? I'm a Pakistani. What minimum right should I be getting if I am living in my home country? Well, I need to have education. I need to have access to good education, right? And you have systems here where you have charitable schools, where you have curriculums from India, from the UK, from Australia, where, you can, France for that matter, you can send your kids to a certain curriculum school. And it can be on any scale. You can have it be affordable, you can have it be expensive, whatever that is. So you have access to education and good schooling, right? So that's one right you better have as a citizen of a country. So good education, great. Healthcare, you better have good healthcare. So anyone who lives here has access to health insurance. But more importantly, if you go to a government hospital and they realize that you're a special case where you can afford to pay for that treatment, you have instances where it was free, completely free of
wow.
charge for someone who isn't a citizen of this country. So good education, good healthcare, good infrastructure, man. To be able to get from point A to point B on a smooth highway, with highways lit from one end of the country to
Yeah,
another. I mean, everything I say here, I think you can trace this back to Lebanon. I can trace this back to
of
Pakistan.
course.
Someone who's from Central Asia can trace it back there, and you can see almost in every instance it's lacking, right? So, education, healthcare, good infrastructure, opportunity, career opportunities, right? You have a country, you have a leadership that is constantly looking for the next big thing. How do we elevate our game, right? All the government services are going to be online now, right? We're going to have these solutions for the pandemic, these testing centers. We're going to keep the hospitals free so you can get the sort of non-COVID related, surgeries done there. it's amazing that you have access to all of these utilities, all of these services as an expat. And I think the most important thing, Ali, for me at least, is that every human being deserves dignity and respect.
Hmm.
And you have that here. Do you know what I mean? You probably don't have the representation in your own home country if you were to go back. And I think I think we ought to pay homage to that, to the fact that the leadership of this country had the vision to create something amazing for everyone who lived here on this land, for anyone and everyone. You know, look at the pandemic. It takes one crisis. It takes you one crisis to realize the strength of a government. Um, we have COVID
Yes,
19.
indeed.
The whole world's ridden with that. And you saw early on in the US and even in Europe, people couldn't get tested. You simply didn't have the
Or
option
you wait
to
days for it.
find out,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you wait days. You didn't have the option to find out if you had COVID-19. How ridiculous is that? Or you didn't have access to face masks because face masks were out of stock. It's just not there. Or you had to pay a significant price to be able to get access to ventilators in the hospitals, which are already short in stock in the country that you're from. And here it's freely
Non-existent. Yeah,
accessible.
it's non-existent. The
It's not existent. You test positive. There's protocols to be followed. There's treatments to be had. It's I don't think people realize that. I mean, if you can go through your entire lifetime, if you live up to 70 or 80, and not have any of these issues, man, you've lived a life better than probably
most. Yeah.
90%
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the population. You know what I mean? So it's something I feel very, very strongly about. And yeah, that's something, that's a sentiment I wanted to express.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered my. I had a small question on this topic. Is what's the concept of home to you? Given that Dubai is probably more home to you than Karachi, than your hometown. And I think it goes back to even the episode that some of the episodes I had done previously, where you kind of you have your identity as who you are, you have your
Mm,
nationality, but home can also be detached from that. You can always feel another place is home to you, can give you this safety and security that you need to say this
yeah,
is my home and have that feeling. And I think it's very difficult to um, express that to people from your home country, because
oh,
um,
absolutely.
either they've not traveled, not known the difference,
Sure,
or you may be seen as, okay, maybe you didn't suffer as much, then you do not have the right, or
hmm
something like that. But I think,
hmm
again, I don't want to get into that kind of topic, but this
sure,
is
sure.
this is kind of the sentiment. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, uh, and you covered one more right that every citizen should have access to, which is security. And security, man, for you, your kids, for your property, you have that. It's an amazing place. And I mean, like I said, if you're a third culture kid, you probably don't have the notion of home. You probably don't have that. But I think you're living in a country like the UAE, which is extremely progressive, and you see that year on year with the policies that they implement, whether it's foreign policy or whether it's domestic policies. You see that progressive nature, and it's very simple. The leadership, I imagine, and I'm paraphrasing, is looking for nation builders. Do you have a skill set that can contribute to building this nation? And if you do, then you have fair compensation and you have every right that you would have in your own home country if conditions were ideal. It's very, very simple. It is opportunity like you've never seen before, and it is tax free. And that again is a huge, huge incentive
Yeah.
for many, many people, especially people who sort of who put a price on the work they do. If you're investing so much time in working, you want to make sure that you're taking home that pay. So yeah, no, um, I mean, I love this place. It is home. It is going to be home, And yeah, it's about legacy building, man. It's leaving behind a legacy and saying, you know what, this is the role I played in
Yeah,
building a nation.
indeed.
And if you can do that, that's amazing.
Indeed, indeed. I think for me, it's very much um, puts a smile on my face because I've, some of the, for example, events that I've attended or places that I've, been to when I was young, and then through my work or through my experiences, I got to work in these places as I've grown older. I got to maybe organize an event somewhere that I've been when I was younger in like I would say is my hometown. Um,
Mm,
so yeah, there's something nice about that, I think. Um, and no man, I wanna talk about sports next, and then I think then I have a couple
sure.
of final questions
Easy.
that I wanna I wanna
Sure.
touch on. Um,
Sure.
you said you found boxing and UFC both on the resurgence and quite
Mm, mm,
I want to say like these very interesting type sports. For me, if I would say like UFC, um, I mean, full disclaimer, I, was into it a long time ago, and I'm
sure.
not very much into it right now. But
Sure.
what I've, I through some of my work and recent experiences, I think I realized that what is intriguing about the sport
Mm,
is the mental strain or the mental toll it could take on someone, because if you just imagine it, you might be training for one fight a year
sure.
and
Sure.
doing all these different things and flying everywhere, and you
Sure.
have your teammates with you and the people in your corner who are helping and pushing you, and then you could go to this fight and lose, and then
Mm,
that's just it's just gone in 5 minutes or a round
sure.
or two, and all that.
Sure.
So that's what I find intriguing, is how do you cope with that mental
Mm, mm,
punch to the brain, so that's
sure.
what I find intriguing. Yeah.
It, speaking of, I mean, these are combat sports, right? In every sense. And I think one thing I really like, and I told you the Mike Tyson story, and, you know, check out some of the documentaries, check out some of, the stuff covering his life. I think for a casual sports fan, we all like sports, right? I mean, I may not follow the NFL that closely, but I know who's playing the Super Bowl. I know who the players are to watch out for. But I think what's amazing about sports is that it takes a special personality to make a casual sports fan into a fan of that
Mm-hmm.
specific sport.
Mm-hmm.
What Conor McGregor has done for UFC is really put it on the map. People know the way, his swag, the way he talks, all of it. And he sold the sport to many, many, many people by having this unbeaten record. And you sort of see that in boxing too. And if I could draw the comparison for you, boxing is an old sport, obviously. And there have been times where you've had a very dominant boxer in the game who's beaten all the other competition, and really no one stood up to them. And you see that in the F1 constantly. Lewis Hamilton's going to win his seventh championship now. So I don't want to use the word boring, but there's no one to stand up to him and say, you know what, I'm going to give you a run for your money.
Yeah.
But I think in boxing, and boxing has had that sort of peaks and troughs. But you finally have a situation now in the heavyweight division where you have three truly amazing contenders, three truly amazing personalities. You have Tyson Fury, who's the lineal champion. You have Anthony Joshua. You have Deontay Wilder. And these names may sound foreign if you're not following the sport, but all three of them, I mean, could take the belt away from the other at any given time. And just to give you some context, Deontay Wilder is an American boxer. They call him the Bronze Bomber. So up until he fought Tyson Fury, whose name I've mentioned to you in the document, he was on a 42 match winning streak, right, Ali? 42 match winning, so unbeaten. And of the 42, I think he had 41 knockouts. Like, he knocked out the opponent in 41 instances of those 42 matches. And then he ends up fighting Tyson Fury. And they end up drawing that first match, right? and then they fight in a rematch, and Tyson Fury wins and wins the belt that Deontay Wilder had. So you go, like you said, the mental toll it takes. You are God. 42 matches, you have that one punch that can floor anyone, and it takes you two matches to make you realize actually you're not that
You're
good.
not. You're not. Yeah.
It's crazy. So, and I think it. I don't think I enjoyed boxing or combat sports when I was young because I was like, oh, this is a blood sport. You know, it's taxing, it's cruel almost. But I don't know. I think the older I get, um, the more fascinating this gets for me
Mm.
because you know, Ali, you're paying the ultimate price by stepping into the ring. You're willing to get knocked out, or you're willing to be crippled. Do you know what I mean? Like you're paying the ultimate price to be able to say that you have a belt or bragging rights. And I don't think, and I mean, I think the bigger the price you pay, um, the more infamy you get. You know, like a modern day gladiator, right?
Yeah.
Someone who's fighting a lion or a leopard in the Colosseum. So I think that's what fascinates me, and it's yeah, the UFC is obviously Abu Dhabi is doing a lot on that front, but it's these personalities that really convert the average fan to going, oh wow, look at this dude,
Indeed.
he can talk the
Indeed.
talk and he can fight.
Yeah, I think that's that. I mean, people will relate much to that, and you have this feeling that you either want to be like them or you want to understand their story, and I
Mm,
think that's
mm,
where, um, a lot of going back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show is just how you could just learn about someone and understand all the backstory, and later, few videos down the line, you're learning about the origins of jiu-jitsu, and you can see all, then you
mm.
start to learn about all these different types of people and what
Oh,
they've done,
absolutely.
and then
Oh,
you realize,
absolutely.
wow, the person that I've been following is not as good as these people, and or these people,
Mm,
how they fought at that time. So I think, definitely, I think these sports, the combat sports, these two that you've talked about, um, boxing in a way is something that I also uh, kind of like a lot, and I think I'm glad that we touched on those two sports, because I think um, they just have those very interesting moments in them, and
they do.
the type of people that are in them. I would say that it is taxing, like you said, it is scary, and I don't like the trash talk part of it, or the show offiness
Mm,
of it. So I wouldn't like look at that. I very much focus on the fight itself, and or like
sure,
somebody's kind of journey to that. Um,
sure.
and with our own journey right now, Norman, I want to say that we have, in a way, kind of reached the conclusion, with
Nice.
a couple of final questions
Sure,
here, and
sure,
and 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 I want to say, okay, this is a two-pronged question.
sure.
Leaving the show, like now, as we're starting to end it, what do you think people will remember the most about it?
Hmm. Um, I think many things. I think the fact that history is a fascinating subject. I don't know if I spoke enough about it or if I spent enough time talking about it, but it is truly a fascinating subject because it really helps you understand, where you come from. And if I could maybe interject that with sort of a story about identity, right? About who we are. So I'm from Pakistan, a kid who is from Pakistan, who grew up in Dubai and works in Abu Dhabi. Um, and I identify myself as a Pakistani because of the language I speak and because of the culture I believe in, and all of that comes with it. So during the AFC, I had a chance to go to all the embassies and meet with the emissaries to talk about how we can get the ambassadors involved in promoting the matches of that country and getting the population to rally behind the team when they're playing in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, or Sharjah. And in all those exchanges, all the embassies were so hospitable, and you sort of got to see some of their culture because they sort of left you with, oh, here's a souvenir of, here's a mat, here's some stitching, and here's a pot, etc. So I went to the embassy of Turkmenistan, right? What do you know about Turkmenistan? You don't know anything about Turkmenistan, right? It's one of those countries. So when we finished the meeting with the ambassador, I'm about to leave, and the gentleman who set up the meeting for me, who's the emissary of the ambassador, he's like, "Oh, so where are you from?" So I go, "Oh, I'm from Pakistan." And he goes, "Oh, okay. So do you speak your mother tongue?" I was like, "Yeah, I speak Urdu at home." And he goes, "Do you know what Urdu means?" And I said, "I know what Urdu means. Urdu means um, um, a tribe um, of warriors, or rather, the language of the tribe of warriors, if that makes sense to you." And he goes, "Yeah,
Yes.
that's true." So here's the kicker, right? Urdu, the word Urdu, which means the language spoken by the traveling warriors, is a Turkic word. So Turkic is the mother language, right? That has 35 languages below it, and it is spoken in Central Asia. It is spoken in Turkey, and certain words from Urdu are taken from that language family. So here you have an instance where there's a dude from Pakistan who's never met anyone from Turkmenistan, suddenly be able to relate to someone from a far
Indeed.
away land. And I mean, and that's the story. I mean, when you talk about India and Pakistan, the countries, they say that tens of thousands of years ago, Central Asian tribes came in to inhabit those lands, and then Polynesians, sort of the Kiwis,
Mm.
or from that part, came and occupied the south of India. Anyway, the story is that the way the language came about, the Urdu language came about, is through the interaction of the Hindu dwellers of India and the Central Asian tribes that would come to trade or war with them, and that's how Urdu came about. Urdu, the language that I speak today, that somehow someone from Turkmenistan can also understand.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, when you hear that stuff, you go, that is fascinating. That somehow maybe I'm more than just Pakistani. Maybe I am that and Central Asia. Maybe I'm pan. The meaning of your identity changes. So hopefully people remember the fact that history is intriguing, and it's definitely a subject to remember. Technology, man, it's moving at a ridiculously fast pace, and 2 generations from now, you're gonna have, I don't know, our descendants knowing probably 100 times more than any of us knew, and the fact that the UAE is the place, man. It's the place to be.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of subjects that we touched on. I think we delved super deep in them and challenged a lot of the
Yeah,
topics, which I think is good. But well, okay, when let's ask another one here and say,
sure.
why did you decide to come on the show then?
I've been watching podcasts for a long time, and I've had a chance to express my ideas in private with friends, and I thought it was an interesting opportunity to voice those ideals or those ideas in public, and sort of see what people think of them. I think I'm not going to say we're all born with that need to express, but it is an expression, right, of all of these ideas. So I thought it'd be cool to actually do that, and see myself on camera and get famous. That's why.
Awesome. I like this part at the end. I like this part at the end because it's it's the secret right there. But I think it's
Sure,
it's
sure,
you gave a lot of people a lot to think about.
sure,
Definitely you've done that. And um my last question, which everyone knows by now, is do you have a
sure.
question for me?
Oh, oh, okay. You've thrown me off guard. Um, hmm. Let's see. Do I have a question for you? I think we both. I like the fact that this was what I thought it would be. Was that it was going to be a conversation. I like the fact that you shared your points of view, and there were rebuttals from your side. And I think that makes the conversations more rich. And I'm glad you did that. It wasn't just a sort of a one-way conversation. So I don't think I have any specific questions, but no, I enjoyed I enjoyed our exchange today.
Awesome. Thank you, Nauman. I think like a lot of the topics that we've discussed, there's a lot of, I mean, I have even more questions for you. I really think there's a part two here. As we were speaking, I think really think that there's a part two in
Sure.
this one. And definitely, as I said before in previous episodes, there's gonna be reunion shows. So definitely you want to watch out for that one. Um,
Beauty.
it's been a great talk with you, Nauman. It's been an awesome episode with you. Before I sign us off, do you have any last words you want to say?
No, thanks for having me. I'd love to do a part two. I think I think the tradition of storytelling goes back centuries and centuries, and we are telling stories, and we're continuing that tradition that someone started around a fire. I don't know,
Indeed,
centuries ago. So
which is awesome. Thank you, Norman. I'm
thank
going
you,
to
sir.
sign us off.
I
This has
appreciate it.
been the Nobody's Famous podcast. You can catch us on Anghami, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, all those good places. And you can watch this on YouTube. We'll be with you all the way. This has been the show with Muhammad Nauman, the one and the only. And we're going to be signing off from the Nobody's Famous podcast.